I met Robert Davis for 20 years, and we were married for 5. Everyone said we were the perfect couple, until the day I accidentally damaged our marriage certificate and went to the county clerk's office to get a replacement. Ms. Miller, your marriage certificate is fake. The county clerk's office staff member frowned, her tone sympathetic. The system shows that Mr. Davis is married, but you are listed as single. I gripped the hem of my clothes tightly. That's impossible. We got married 5 years ago. Mr. Davis's spouse is Victoria Black. The name hit me like a slap, leaving me dizzy. 5 years ago, Robert Davis disappeared before our wedding. When I found him, he had amnesia and was with another woman. That woman was Victoria Black. I stood in the county clerk's office lobby, my ears ringing. The scene from 5 years ago flashed clearly before my eyes. The day Robert Davis regained his memory, he held me tightly, his voice trembling. Sarah, how could I not recognize you? You are the only one I love in this world. In front of me, he deleted all of Victoria Black's contact information and disgustedly threw a check at her. Get out, you liar. Never appear before us again. And now, the cold reality told me they were the legal couple. What was I then? I looked at the photo on the marriage certificate, where I was smiling blissfully, and my eyes were stung with tears. For 5 years, he slept beside me every night, tenderly calling me wife. He helped me choose furniture and decorate our home, but it turned out, from the beginning to the end, I wasn't even his wife. I returned home, heartbroken. As I reached the door, I heard voices inside. Robert, it's been 5 years. Aren't you going to give Sarah a rightful status? It was David Clark's voice, a mutual friend. I held my breath, waiting for his reply, but Robert Davis was silent for a long time. David Clark couldn't help but press him. What are you thinking? You lied to Sarah for 5 years to a materialistic woman. Didn't you say Sarah was the one you loved most? The man lit the cigarette between his fingers, took a deep drag, and said with some helplessness, I just wanted to stabilize Victoria's condition. After I left, she became lovesick and nearly died by slitting her wrists at home. She can't live without me. Sarah can be open with me, but I can't always be with Victoria. So giving her a rightful status as compensation, what's wrong with that? My face was pale. Every word he spoke tore in my heart. Besides, she's Ethan's mom. For the child, I should also give her a rightful status. How dare you say that? When Sarah was pregnant, you secretly gave her an abortion pill just so she would adopt that woman's child. How could you do that to her? It was the middle of summer, yet my heart felt like it had plunged into an ice cellar. Soon after we got married, I found out I was pregnant, but not long after, I had a miscarriage for no reason. I always thought it was because my body was weak and couldn't keep the child. I never imagined Robert Davis had tampered with things. He actually caused my miscarriage for Victoria Black's child. I covered my mouth tightly, afraid they would hear my crying. No wonder. The day after I had the miscarriage, he brought Ethan home as an adopted child. At first, I was a bit resistant, but he said it was to help me move on from the grief of losing my child sooner. For 5 full years, I was kept in the dark, immersed in the fantasy he had woven for me. Not realizing the man sleeping next to me had long since changed his heart. Intense sorrow made my vision blacken in waves. My body became weak, and I fell to the ground. The people inside heard the noise and immediately fell silent. Robert Davis saw me sitting on the floor and rushed over anxiously, scooping me up, but I instinctively struggled in his arms. His eyes were flustered as he cautiously asked, Sarah, what's wrong? I stared at him, wondering how much sincerity was in those anxious eyes. It's nothing. I was just out in the sun and felt a little dizzy. He carried me to the couch and looked at the bruises on my knee with concern. Maybe the county clerk's office made a mistake. The man's body stiffened for a moment. He lowered his eyes, not daring to look at me. Aren't you going to Ethan's preschool sports day this afternoon? Let the lawyer handle this small matter. I forced a smile that was uglier than a cry. Okay. After they left the house, I made a phone call. I am willing to accept the organization's arrangements and go to the polar regions. Really. Sarah, you need to think this through, I'm sure. Our people will arrange it for you the day after tomorrow. Hanging up the phone, I looked around the house that he and I had slowly filled over 5 years, feeling a wave of sadness. After packing my things, I took out the photos he and I had taken over the years and the love letters he had written to me, from age 10 to 25, from school uniform to wedding dress. Those photos and words filled with deep love were consumed by the flames, leaving nothing behind. The firelight flickered on my tear-streaked face. My phone rang. I glanced at it. It was Ethan's teacher. Hello, Ethan's mom. The sports day is about to start. Are you here? I'm sorry. I'll be right there. When I arrived at preschool and ran to the field, I saw a chilling scene. Robert Davis and Victoria Black were playing capture the flag with Ethan, the three of them laughing happily. He used to disdain participating in these activities, but now he was willing to play the role of a good husband and father with Victoria Black. Ethan spotted me first, his happy little face scrunching up. What took you so long? You can leave. I have Dad and Aunt Victoria. And that's enough. They both noticed me. Before I could confront them, Victoria Black knelt down and started to hit herself. Sarah, please don't blame Robert. I just wanted to see him too much. I apologize to you. The man quickly grabbed her hand, his eyes full of heartache. When he looked up at me, his gaze was incredibly cold. You were late yourself. If it weren't for Victoria, Ethan would have been teased by his classmates for not having a mom. You should thank her. Even Ethan stood in front of her. You don't deserve to be my mom. I want Aunt Victoria to be my mom. They shielded Victoria Black behind them, united against me, using sharp words that tore at my heart. Didn't you delete all her contact information? How did you meet? Robert Davis instantly became flustered, stuttering. We just happened to run into each other. Victoria works nearby. It was a very clumsy excuse, but I didn't care anymore. Let's do the next activity together. Perhaps noticing my poor complexion, he softened his tone and reached for my hand. But Ethan was full of disdain for me. It was only after Victoria Black coaxed him a bit that he reluctantly agreed. 5 years of living together couldn't compete with a few words from an outsider. I laughed mockingly to myself. The next activity was catching beanbags. Ethan's eyes were full of anticipation, but I felt a faint sense of unease. Sure enough, the beanbags he threw were all aimed at my body. The supposedly soft beanbags were incredibly hard, hurting me when they hit. The last beanbag was aimed directly at my head. Bang! Warm liquid trickled down my temple. Screams instantly erupted around me. Amid the chaos, Ethan jumped up excitedly and ran to high-five Victoria Black. And Victoria, wasn't my throw accurate? I stared at them blankly, my heart aching more than the wound. This isn't our beanbag. Robert Davis picked up the beanbag, his face changing drastically. Go check the surveillance camera in the equipment room. I stared at Victoria Black, seeing panic flash in her eyes. Maybe it was a mistake. Let's take Sarah to the nurse's office first. Victoria Black grabbed Robert Davis's wrist. Her expression. Robert Davis pulled me, his fingers leaving red marks on my arm, his voice low. Sarah, do you have to make a spectacle of yourself in front of everyone? It's just a little blood. Don't be so dramatic. Ethan also hid behind Victoria Black, making faces at me. It's your own fault for being so clumsy that you got hit. Several parents hesitated, but ultimately no one interfered. Only I, the victim, faced their threats alone and helplessly, with blood on half my face. I laughed out loud. They were a real family. I was just a clown. I turned to leave. Robert Davis tried to stop me, but then heard Victoria Black call out, Robert, I think I got a cut here. It hurt so much, hearing his footsteps stop behind me. I scoffed and became even more determined to completely separate from Robert Davis. As for Ethan, I didn't want him either. I decided to go home tonight and tell my family I was ending the marriage alliance. When I got home late that night after getting treated at the hospital, I saw the house full of people. Robert Davis and Dad were standing on the second floor. Dad cleared his throat and announced loudly, Thanks to Robert Davis, I have found the real Miss Miller. The guests and I were too stunned to speak then. A familiar figure slowly walked to the front of the room, my pupils constricted. I stared intently at Victoria Black. Victoria is my daughter, George Miller. I couldn't imagine what methods Robert Davis had used to deceive my dad and make her the Miller daughter. Pushing through the crowd, I intended to confront Robert Davis, but ran into David Clark. He pulled me aside, sent me a recording, and quickly left, my fingers trembling. I opened it. Why are you cooperating with Uncle George to have Victoria Black replace Sarah's identity? I plan to register our marriage with Sarah on her birthday. Sarah has me as her backing. Even if she's not the Miller daughter, she'll be fine. But Victoria is different. After divorcing me, she'll have nothing. Should I let her go back to singing in bars? Every word was like an ice pick piercing my eardrums. My mind went blank, my ears ringing. Looking at Victoria Black on the second floor, laughing and chatting, I rushed upstairs and questioned my father loudly. Dad, you say I'm a fake Miss Miller, But what proof do you have? Just your and Robert Davis's words? Everyone turned to look. Dad remained calm and collected, while Victoria Black looked at me with a mocking smile. Soon after, Dad took a folder from his assistant and pulled out 2 paternity tests. Everyone, please look. This is the paternity test between me and Victoria. It shows a 99.99% blood relation. And this one, between me and Sarah, is 0.0001. How is that possible? I cried out in disbelief. Victoria Black walked over with a smug look and whispered in my ear, "How does it feel? Your husband, child, and family are all mine now." I raised my hand and slapped her. As I raised my hand for a second slap, I was dragged away by 3 or 4 thugs and pinned tightly to the ground. Enough. Sarah, you completely disrespect me. How can the Miller house possibly tolerate you? Then, Dad signaled the bodyguards with a crisp sound. My arm was dislocated. My face instantly turned pale. Excruciating pain spread throughout my body. Robert Davis, who ran over, wanted to speak up and stop them, but Victoria Black was faster. She knelt down, begging for mercy on my behalf. Dad, don't blame Sarah. It's all my fault. Look how sensible Victoria is. Hurry up and beg for forgiveness. Looking at my completely unfamiliar father, I held back tears and choked out the word no. Robert Davis couldn't help but speak. Sarah, this is your fault. Victoria is even begging for you. What's wrong with apologizing? Only now did I see the true heart of the man I had loved for 5 years. I scoffed and turned my head, unwilling to look at them anymore. Robert Davis, humiliated, also became angry and ordered the bodyguards to hold me up. Since she hit you, Victoria, you go hit her back. I couldn't believe Robert Davis would say something like that. That's not a good idea, Victoria Black said softly, though her hands at her sides were already clenched into fists. Do you want a fake to climb over you? A member of the Miller family can't be a coward. Go ahead and hit her. Beat her into submission, and Dad will reward you. Hearing these words, the woman's eyes lit up, a flash of viciousness in them. She then delivered a solid slap across my face. Instantly, blood seeped from the corner of my mouth. Another slap, and the other side of my face swelled up high. The freshly stitched wound on my forehead also split open. Victoria Black sneered and smashed her hand onto my wound. My vision turned bloody red. Just as everyone stood watching, someone in the crowd suddenly rushed towards Victoria Black with a knife. "George Miller, you bastard. You killed my daughter. I'll make you suffer the grief of losing a child, too." Robert Davis pulled me. The knife aimed at Victoria Black plunged into my body instead. I collapsed onto the ground, my body convulsing, blood pooling around me. Robert Davis, however, was only concerned with Victoria Black's scraped knee. Victoria Black and I were both taken to the ambulance. The doctors immediately wheeled me into the operating room, while Robert Davis was busy comforting a shaken Victoria Black. When he finally calmed Victoria Black down, he remembered to check on me. But the operating room lights had already gone out. He searched everywhere in the hospital but couldn't find my hospital room. "Nurse, which room is Sarah in?" The nurse looked up, her eyes holding a strange expression. "You are." "I'm her husband," he answered impatiently. The nurse looked down at the records, her voice suddenly becoming cautious. "I'm sorry, Ms. Miller did not survive the rescue efforts. She has already been sent to the crematorium." Robert Davis froze for a moment, then let out a cold laugh. "What kind of joke is this? How could she be dead? Did your hospital make a mistake?" Seeing the sympathy in the young nurse's eyes, his heart felt as if it had been cruelly squeezed, making it hard to breathe. "I want to see her now. Immediately." The young nurse was startled by Robert Davis's bloodshot eyes. She handed him a form and said, "If you don't believe me, you can go to the crematorium yourself to see." Victoria Black walked over at some point and hugged him from behind. "How much did she pay you to help her tell such a lie?" "That's enough. Tell Sarah that if she doesn't come back now, she shouldn't bother coming back at all." "What's wrong, Robert?" The man's mocking words contained a hint of worry. Victoria Black's eyes were full of malice, but her tone remained gentle. "Sarah might be angry and jealous because you saved me. She's probably just trying to make you worry." Robert Davis looked at her with some doubt. "Really? Really? I didn't hit her hard at all. How could she possibly be dead?" "Don't worry, Robert. She's not the Miller daughter anymore. Where else could she go besides being by your side?" This greatly soothed Robert Davis's anxious heart. Yes, I loved him so much. How could I bear to leave? Robert Davis remembered his sophomore year of college. Many people at the school had contracted a severe epidemic, and everyone was quarantined. The field was filled with infected people, and he was among them. He truly believed he would die. But I had secretly snuck in, risking infection, refusing to leave. Even if I die, I'll die with you. Those resolute words, accompanied by the girl's hot tears, struck his heart. At that moment, Robert Davis decided he would spend his entire life with me. But now, Robert Davis remembered the look in my eyes as I lay in a pool of blood. Watching him, his heart suddenly ached. A sudden unease made him push Victoria Black away. "You're not feeling well. You should go back and rest." "I'll go back home first." Victoria Black reluctantly tried to grab the man's collar but missed. Robert Davis sped home, breaking traffic laws. The house was empty except for the servants. He ran to our room and found that my things were gone. Robert Davis's heart was in complete disarray. "Where are Sarah's things? Where did they all go?" The servants exchanged glances, silent for a long time, until one maid finally spoke hesitantly. "The day before yesterday. I think I saw Madame burning something. When I helped clean up, it felt like photos. The day before yesterday." Robert Davis's eyes widened. He went back and found the photo albums. When he opened them, they were indeed empty. The man's fingers trembled. His face drained of color. These photos, every single one, were taken by me. I treasured them immensely and never allowed anyone to touch them. Yet now, I have personally burned them. Robert Davis couldn't understand what he had done for me to so cruelly burn all our memories. He suddenly thought of something and rummaged through our marriage certificate. The wedding photo on it had also been torn off by me. Sure enough, one corner of the marriage certificate had wrinkles from where I had squeezed it tightly. Robert Davis understood. It must have been that I discovered the marriage certificate was fake, which was why I burned the photos and left home. It's okay, as long as I coax her. She'll come back. Robert Davis remembered when we were dating. If he made me angry, as long as he was sweet to me or gave me a gift, I would forgive him. Robert Davis took out his phone and called his secretary. "Buy all the new gemstone necklaces from a luxury brand and send them home. Make sure the packaging is nice. Should I send them to Ms. Black?" The man paused for a few seconds. He realized that after getting married, he had rarely given me gifts, while Victoria Black had received a constant stream of presents. "No, send them to Sarah," hanging up the phone. He felt a pang of guilt remembering what the secretary had said. After 5 years of marriage, we were less intimate than when we were dating. Although everyone said we were inseparable, he knew very well that he had given most of his energy and affection to Victoria Black tonight. "I have to make it up to her properly." Robert Davis had his secretary take Ethan to Grandpa George's house. Then he sent me a message. "Don't be angry anymore. I've prepared a surprise for you tonight. Hurry home." The moment the message was sent, a red exclamation mark appeared. Robert Davis's face turned ashen. After discovering I had blocked him, Robert Davis still believed I was just being jealous and throwing a tantrum. "She'll definitely come back tonight," because once, when I argued with Robert Davis and stayed out overnight, he got sick with a high fever the next day and almost developed pneumonia. Since then, even if we argued and gave each other silent treatment, I wouldn't stay out overnight. But this time, Robert Davis waited until late into the night, and I still didn't appear. He curled up on the couch, feeling an emptiness in his heart. Unknowingly, he fell asleep. When he woke up, a fluffy head was buried in his neck. Warm, damp breaths on his earlobe. Robert Davis was smug, thinking I had come back after all. "Sarah, I knew you couldn't leave me." The woman's body stiffened. She looked up at Robert Davis, annoyed. "Take a good look. Who am I?" Upon seeing Victoria Black's face, Robert Davis immediately pushed her away. His hot body gradually cooled. He looked around impatiently. "Why are you here? Where's Sarah?" Victoria Black's lips were pressed into a thin line. She stared intently at the man with a dark expression. "Why are you looking for her? Am I not enough? You and I are legally married. I can do everything she can." The woman grabbed his collar, forcibly kissed his lips, and tried to take off his clothes with her other hand. Robert Davis hadn't expected Victoria Black to suddenly become so aggressive. In front of him, she had always been considerate and gentle. Even in bed, she always satisfied his requests. "Get off." Robert Davis tore the woman off him and pushed her away forcefully. "I love you so much. But you only think about Sarah. What am I doing wrong? Now I'm the Miller daughter, and your legal wife. What is Sarah to you anyway? What kind of Miller daughter are you? A stern female voice rang out. 7 or 8 men in suits burst in, followed by a person thrown onto the ground like a dead pig, his face bruised and swollen. The man was in too much pain to speak, only groaning towards Victoria Black. Victoria Black barely recognized him from his swollen face and cried out in alarm, "Dad!" Robert Davis saw the stern woman in front of him and quickly straightened his clothes, composing himself. He respectfully called out, "Mom," but Eleanor Smith didn't even look at him. An illegitimate daughter of George Miller, daring to covet Sarah's position as the Clark heir. How audacious. Saying this, she waved her hand. A muscular bodyguard punched Victoria Black in the stomach, and the woman immediately threw up. Several more punches landed. Victoria Black, tears and snot streaming down her face, lay on the ground begging for mercy. "Let you go? Fine. Hit this old bastard the same way you hit Sarah. Hit him until I'm satisfied, and I'll let you go." Eleanor Smith's words made George Miller, lying on the ground, curse loudly. "You viper. You're encouraging a daughter to hit her father. Eleanor Smith, you'll pay for this." He swallowed the rest of his words as he watched Victoria Black, her face contorted, raise her fist high. This dog-eat-dog drama sent a chill down Robert Davis's spine. "And you?" Eleanor Smith raised an eyebrow, her gaze like a knife, piercing Robert Davis. "I watched you grow up. I thought you and Sarah would live harmoniously together. I never expected you to fall for a piece of trash like this." Eleanor Smith's words made the man's face flush, feeling deeply embarrassed. "And you dared to cooperate with George Miller to fake a paternity test for Sarah. And even let Sarah take the knife for this bitch. You caused her to bleed to death." A loud slap landed on Robert Davis's face. "Impossible. Sarah can't be dead." Robert Davis's eyes were about to split, and he roared. The young nurse's words echoed in his mind, but he still refused to believe it. Looking at Mrs. Smith, who hated him to the bone, Robert Davis cautiously knelt at her feet. "Mrs. Smith, you're lying to me, aren't you? I know I was wrong. Please let Sarah see me, okay?" Eleanor Smith laughed mockingly. "You will never see her again in this lifetime." Robert Davis looked up abruptly, his eyes wide. "Impossible. Sarah won't die. She wouldn't leave me." Eleanor Smith's eyebrows furrowed. She pointed at his nose and cursed loudly. "You still have the nerve to mention her. You lied to her for 5 years, got married, and had a child with someone else, making her look like a fool raising another woman's child. You stole her identity, sucked her dry, and now you're pretending to be devoted. Do you think you're worthy?" Eleanor Smith's voice was cruel and venomous, every word cut deep. Robert Davis's face was deathly pale. He staggered back, as if all the bones had been removed from his body. "You can live out your life with this illegitimate daughter. Sarah is dead. You'll never see her again." With that, Eleanor Smith had the bodyguards carry the unconscious George Miller out of the Davis house. Robert Davis collapsed onto the floor, Mrs. Smith's words echoing in his mind. He muttered to himself, "Impossible, impossible. Sarah wouldn't leave me. She must just be angry. Once she calms down, she'll come back." He repeated it over and over, trying to convince himself. But the next day, the Clark family announced they were holding a funeral for me. Robert Davis stood outside the funeral home chapel, hesitant to go in. Eleanor Smith, the woman who had always been strong, who had held up the entire Miller family during their most difficult times without complaining or shedding a tear, now rushed over with bloodshot eyes and slapped him hard twice. "Beast, how dare you come to her funeral?" Every word she spoke was filled with bitter hatred. "You and Victoria Black killed my daughter. Get out. Get out." Robert Davis's cheeks stung, but he couldn't feel any pain. He looked up at the portrait on display in the funeral home or chapel, tears streaming down his face. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I really didn't know this would happen." He knelt down, his forehead hitting the floor heavily, sobbing heartbrokenly, as if pouring out all his regret. Eleanor Smith called for the bodyguards to drag him out. The man gripped the doorframe tightly, his fingers were broken by the bodyguards. Yet he refused to leave. No one noticed the miniature camera on the ceiling, its red light on. Everything at the funeral was displayed on my computer. "He's crying pretty hard. Does he regret it now?" My former rival, Agent 034, sneered beside me, looking at me playfully. "Agent 027, is this the man you left the organization for?" I turned off the surveillance camera and didn't answer. Just walked towards the helipad. The wind and snow of the South Pole were calling me. There would be no lies or deceit there, only eternal ice and new life. "Let's go. Everything here has nothing to do with me anymore." My voice was calm, without a ripple, as I walked straight towards the helicopter. Just as the door was about to close, a strong hand grabbed it. "Why didn't you wait for me?" I looked at the familiar man in front of me in surprise. "David? How are you here?" He chuckled, stepped onto the helicopter, and sat beside me. "Please call me Agent 009. I will be your new partner." I was a bit surprised. David Clark was a mutual friend of Robert Davis and me, but I knew he had a crush on me since college. However, at the time, my heart and eyes were only on Robert Davis, and he had always maintained the boundary of friendship. I hadn't realized he was Agent 009. No wonder he risked his life to save me during that mission 7 years ago. "Why did you come back? I thought you had also left the organization." The man looked at the city gradually receding below, his voice quiet, but exceptionally clear, "Because this time, I don't want to miss you again." Robert Davis returned home heartbroken. Victoria Black, her face bruised and swollen, greeted him. "Robert, is Sarah really dead?" Seeing him nod, Victoria Black's eyes sparkled with surprise, and her voice was almost cheerful. "It's okay, Robert. I'm here with you. Ethan and I will be very happy." Hearing this, Robert Davis looked up at the happy woman and said coldly, "You and I are getting a divorce." This sentence instantly stunned the still happy woman. She raised her red eyes and stared intently at Robert Davis. "What did you say?" "I've just been abandoned by the Miller family, and you're abandoning me too?" "Only if I divorce you will Sarah forgive me," Robert Davis said, dragging Victoria Black along, as if he wanted to go get the divorce papers immediately. The woman immediately dropped her facade and slapped Robert Davis across the face. "Sarah is dead. You killed her. Do you think she'll forgive you? She'll probably want to be as far away from you as possible in her next life." Robert Davis looked at the frantic Victoria Black with venomous eyes and lunged at her directly. The two of them wrestled on the floor, hitting each other harder than the last. Looking nothing like they had when they were deeply in love, Robert Davis finally saw Victoria Black's true nature. But it was already too late. "If you don't divorce me, the Davis house will never let you off." Victoria Black gritted her back teeth. Now that she was no longer a Miller, the Davis family could crush her with a single finger. Thinking this, she put on her usual gentle mask again. "Robert, I lost my head, but I truly love you. If you want Sarah back, then I'll divorce you, but you can't abandon me. I don't ask for a rightful status. Even being a secret lover is fine." She knelt on the ground, squeezing out a few tears, trying to evoke the man's pity. "Come with me to get divorced tomorrow morning. As long as you promise never to appear in front of me and Ethan again, I'll give you a sum of money to ensure your future." Hearing the man's heartless words, the woman ground her teeth in hatred, but on the surface, she still feigned compliance. But Robert Davis underestimated Victoria Black's viciousness. The next morning, Victoria Black was gone, just as Robert Davis sent people to search for her. A phone call suddenly came. "Prepare $100 million for me and transfer it to this account. Otherwise," the camera shook, showing a tied-up Ethan. "He's your child too." Robert Davis trembled with anger. He hadn't known the woman was so vicious. She would even lay hands on her own son. "Stop with the nonsense. If I don't see the money within 5 minutes, you can expect to collect his body." Such a large sum of money. How can I possibly in 5 minutes, before the man could finish? She hung up the phone. Robert Davis prepared the money while tracking the woman's location. But who knew? Just 5 minutes later, his phone received a photo of a bloody severed finger. The police surrounded the warehouse where Victoria Black was hiding based on the location tracking. When they went in, the woman was still counting zeros in the account, but she reacted quickly, taking Ethan hostage and forcing everyone to retreat. As she was about to escape through the door, a bullet went through her calf, and the police swarmed in. When Ethan was taken to the hospital, he had 2 broken ribs, multiple bruises, and his right index finger missed the optimal time for reattachment. "Dad, I was wrong. I shouldn't have trusted her, and I shouldn't have hurt Mom for her," Ethan cried uncontrollably, regret gnawing at his heart. He finally saw Victoria Black's true nature, but the price was a finger and a body covered in injuries. Robert Davis and a lawyer met Victoria Black. By then, she had been imprisoned for 3 months and looked 10 years older, with a defeated air about her. "Sign this." Divorce papers were handed to her. Victoria Black looked up, staring at him, and let out a hoarse laugh. "Are you still dreaming that Sarah will forgive you?" The man's face darkened. He didn't answer. He just handed her the pen. "Robert Davis, you really have some nerve. You lied to Sarah for 5 years and slept with me countless times. You're already dirty. Why are you pretending to be devoted now? Robert Davis stood up abruptly, gritting his teeth and glaring at her intensely. You don't know, do you? I caused the car accident that led to your amnesia. That sentence stunned him, actually. I knew long ago that I was George Miller's illegitimate daughter. Don't you think it's unfair? She was born the Miller's daughter, while I could only be a shameful illegitimate daughter. So I decided to steal you away and make her taste what it's like to lose. I originally thought it would be difficult, but who knew you were so despicable? I only slept with you a few times, and you became completely devoted, haunted by me. As she spoke, she ran a hand through her hair, looking at Robert Davis with a playful gaze. The man lunged forward and grabbed her by the neck. The prison guards separated them and escorted Victoria Black back. As she left, the woman looked back at him. You are destined to die alone. This sentence became a curse Robert Davis could never forget. Many times he woke up from nightmares, covering his face and weeping. Robert Davis searched everywhere for my grave but found no clues. Desperate, he could only kneel at the Miller house door, begging Mrs. Smith to tell him so he could pay his respects. He knelt at the Miller house door for 5 days and 5 nights, almost dying there, but the gate remained tightly shut. From then on, Robert Davis lived like a shell of a man, even suffering from depression. He took handfuls of pills, but nothing helped. He lost a lot of weight. He committed suicide several times but was saved. Later, for Ethan, he could only continue living a life worse than death. 10 years later, in a hidden lab in the desert, cheers erupted like a tide. Researchers hugged each other, tears of excitement in their eyes. The mission is almost over. We just need to escort the target out, and we can go back. David Clark came to my side at some point and took my hand. When we get back, do you want to spend the rest of our lives together researching the subject of marriage? I paused for a second, then laced my fingers with him and kissed his lips instinctively, my lips serving as my answer. When I brought David Clark home, Mom's coffee cup fell and shattered on the floor. Sarah, is that really you, Sarah? Her lips trembled, her aged fingers suspended in the air, as if afraid I would disappear if she touched me. I knelt down and held her hand. Mom, I'm home. The next second, her hand landed heavily on my face. You little brat. Do you know what I've been through these past 10 years? David Clark quietly handed her a handkerchief. Mom glanced at him, understood, and pulled both of us into her embrace. A week later, at the Miller estate, Mom officiated my wedding to David Clark, inviting only 3 or 4 close relatives and friends. Halfway through the vows, the main gate was suddenly smashed open. Robert Davis, still wearing his wedding suit, burst in. Sarah, I knew you weren't dead. Robert Davis had kept people monitoring the Miller estate, which was how he discovered something was happening. He half knelt before me. Sarah, I've been repenting every day. I truly know I was wrong. Can you please forgive me? David Clark seemed a little nervous. I reassured him by kissing the corner of his mouth. Robert Davis instantly turned pale. David and I already got our marriage license. Please don't disturb me anymore. How could you get married to him? Didn't you love me? The man's sharp voice was filled with disbelief. Listening to his self-righteous words, I curved my lips mockingly. I stopped loving you a long time ago. Victoria Black was your legal wife. Mr. Davis, please leave. I've already divorced her. I had poor judgment of character. Ethan also had a finger cut off by her. He's been missing you so much. Don't you even want Ethan anymore? My breath hitched. I thought of the child I had raised myself, and then I remembered the look in his eyes at the sports day. People always have to pay the price for their choices. Besides, I wasn't his biological mother. Robert Davis's face was completely devoid of color. The bodyguards who arrived were about to escort him out, but he pulled out a knife and held it tightly against his own neck. I was truly wrong, Sarah. I can't live without you. I looked at the frantic man with cold eyes and said, annoyed, you were doing perfectly fine with Victoria Black back then. You weren't dependent on me. Why are you pretending to be devoted now? Seeing the disgust in my eyes, he understood that I had completely moved on from him. Robert Davis released the knife and left dejectedly. Much later, on a warm afternoon, my phone lit up silently. Robert Davis had a depression relapse and committed suicide. I lowered my eyes and looked at the message. My fingertip hovered on the screen for 2 seconds before I turned it off. David Clark held me tightly in his sleep. I snuggled closer into his embrace, looking at the bright sunlight outside the window. I felt a happiness I had never experienced before.